Hello, Paul. Welcome to my tiny podcast. Uh, Thank you for doing this. I think you are a bit brave because you don't have any reference. This will be the first episode in English. I will give you a bit of context of the podcast. It's called Ujar Pembaca. Pembaca in Indonesian means reader, but I can say pembaca to say readers.
The readers, yeah, right.
Yeah.
The Indonesian language is funny with that.
And then ujar means to say. So basically ujar pembaca what readers or a reader says. So that is the whole point. Two readers or maximum three, four in a session. We talk about a book, but there is also an interview with a writer that wrote her or his books. But I always consider that a writer must be a reader somehow. So still consistent with the title. Yeah,
Cool.
one of the main point of doing this is for myself, is to expand my reading tastes or my reading palettes, and then you just did it because you suggested this book, and you have the background. You don't need to show the books.
Yeah.
We Are Legion. Uh, I can say that this is one of your favorite books, right?
Well, it's at least one of the first books that I read that actually
Oh,
engaged me into getting interested in reading something that's not or what I call it fantasy literature. So it's a book a science fiction book, right? So it's not a very big step uh, between fantasy and science fiction, but I usually just I didn't really read that much. I usually spent my time doing something else. But when I started reading this book, We Are Legion or We Are Bob, it expanded my interest in and also my goals of reading at least one book a month. So last year I completed that challenge with at least 15 books. So I'm very happy with that.
cool.
Um, and We Are Bob was probably one of the first ones that started me on that journey.
When was that?
I believe that was in 2023. Like, now I've probably read over 25 books. With almost everything is fantasy, but we are the Bobbyverse series. I've read, I believe, 3 books of it. So I read the trilogy of it.
So one more thing about this podcast is that I don't shy away from spoilers, but I sort of give some respect to those who hate spoilers. But there's always spoilers if you talk about a book in 2 hours. So I would suggest that let's say we give half an hour trying to restrain ourselves for not spoiling, but after that, uh, yeah, you've been warned anyway. But
Yeah.
my argumentation is always like this. If you a good sign of a good book is that you don't need to be it can be spoiled. You can still experience it if you know who did it or what happened. Because for me, a book is to experience. It's not just to know one little clue or two that can ruin the whole experience. That's a fragile book anyway.
I
So,
agree on that. I think that when you're reading something that is really interesting, you don't the book is only the path to understand uh, what you're trying to understand, and you should expand on everything on the details that you find interesting. So spoiling is just a natural occurrence when you are reading these type of books, especially when you're reading stuff like Bobbyverse and other genres that are very similar to it.
Yeah, or maybe a genre that I'm familiar with, which is I don't know, in English it's called literature, or in Norwegian it's skjønnlitteratur, which
Yeah.
is mostly exploring human condition, human characters, and they are very good at characterization. So the main point of reading them is to get to like those characters like you like your friends. So it doesn't matter what happens. What happens is you are being with those characters, or you hate or you love, but there is always an emotion attached to those characters. And that's why you like to be in that world or situations. So, but there are, I agree that there are some like thrillers or detective stories where the main point is to know who did it or who or something like that, and spoiling is a real thing. But that's not this kind of book, I guess.
No, not really. I think that this is one of those books where you don't really care about what's going to happen in a sense, because you're looking at it from a perspective of what's going on right now. And the theme of the book is, of course, very sci-fi,
Mm,
but you're also talking a lot about the philosophical issues or the themes about existence, and these things are not really spoiler heavy. It's more of uh, it makes you think about uh, a scenarios that are not really talked a lot about, and sounds um, not realistic, but
mm,
you're kind of forced into thinking about them anyway, which I really enjoyed with this about this.
mm,
Um, Religion really does speak a lot about this of existence, right?
mm,
So when Bob um, begins his journey, you really start with this. Oh, um, this is something I'm not really thinking about when I'm looking into, like, for example, Star Wars or Dune. You don't think about these things there because it's all about the action or political issues in the interstellar travel.
mm. So let's introduce this book. This book is about Bob, obviously, but in the end, there are more than one Bobs, and that's why it's called We Are Legion. In the beginning, when you suggested this book, I have no reference at all, and I was, whoa, this book is, I don't know, I have a sketchy feeling about this. But, you know, and then before I go to that, let's introduce the book properly. And then the book is in a sci-fi, as you mentioned, sci-fi genre, and it started with someone who called Bob, and he wanted to be, how do you put it, to be, he signed a contract. When he dies, he will be frozen, and then he will be resurrected later when the technology appear. I read about this in Scientific American a long time ago, this cryogenic stuff. And then
Yeah.
something went a little bit wrong, and he start his journey. And the journey is actually to space. Yes. Is it a fair enough introduction without spoiling, or do you want to add something?
Yeah, we could maybe explain that. So this guy is a very techy, nerdy person, and
Us.
one of the yeah, as us, as we are, and he does not believe in God. That this is like a very important aspect of it as well, I believe. He believes that after death there's nothing. So that's why he's very interested in the cryogenetic, because he wants to live. I guess that also adds in that he's afraid of dying. Um, but in the end, he has a accident, and he wakes up 100 years, around 100 and 150 years in the future, and now he is no longer a human. Um, he has become this artificial intelligence technology, which then makes him, in a sense, a mix between a digital brain and and an AI because he has access to all the information that comes by being an AI. Yeah, and that is also where he learns that his mission in life will be to become a interstellar pod to travel the universe and I guess explore, but it's also explore in the purpose of the humans on Earth. So he's locked into that scenario.
Hmm.
I don't
Uh,
think that spoils too much, I guess. That's the
I don't
that
think
should
so.
be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, we have 15 more minutes to try to not spoiling, but after that we can
Yeah.
go crazy. But I remember I bought this book. I'm still old school. I like to have physical books. I went to Nurli in Oslo City. I couldn't find this book. I tried somewhere else, and then they didn't have it, and they sent me to Oslo City Nurli, and then I don't want to look for. At that time, it was around December, where people are so busy buying gifts. I just asked the people who work there, and then the lady who worked there was so excited. And then, oh, here, I know what it is. And then, this is fun. This is fun. She said, "Whoa, okay, this is an endorsement."
That's really cool. I didn't really think that I haven't really heard about the We Are Legion fans or the Bobbyverse fans.
Yeah,
I guess when it comes to um, like how popular the book is, I've only seen that it has a lot of reviews on Goodreads and Audible. But yeah, it's fun to hear about those type of
but
uh,
book
interest.
work, it's full of surprises, Paul. If you hang out
Yeah.
in bookstores, I travel. If I when I travel, I always visit bookstores, and then you meet most people. I think it is a tragedy if you hate books and you work in a bookstore, right? So mostly
Definitely.
they have a sort of a tradition. Maybe this if Paul works in that book, there is a recommendation by Paul for this week or that month or something like that. So mostly people who work there likes book, and then
I
I was just lucky to meet this lady, and then she was really excited about the book.
I guess I see myself as a lone wolf when it comes to the world of books. I guess I have to start in visiting more book places and discuss with people that are what they are reading.
The strange thing is that every people in the book world feel they're lone wolves.
Yeah,
And then this kind of thing, this is connecting book people. It's like, I'm a lone wolf, you're a lone wolf. Oh, let's get along together.
yeah, that makes sense. I always have that feeling like when I talk to my wife and I go like, "Oh, this book is so exciting. This is happening and this is so cool and it's such these experiences I'm getting is so exciting." And her reaction is normally like, "Wow, maybe I should read it." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then that conversation just ends because there's nothing more to talk about really.
Well, maybe I told you we have the reason I invited you because we have so many interesting lunch conversations. Sometimes I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I think I should. I wish I could tape all those all those conversations so that it can be played back.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense for this podcast. Yeah, we usually talk about either books or other cultural things like theater and movies. So yeah, book time will be is a good thing.
And then I mentioned it in passing. I love my favorite author. If someone asks me one person only, or what, yeah, I will mention Orhan Pamuk. He is an author from Turkey. He won a Nobel Prize in 2006. And then the way I discovered him was from an Arco book bag. It was
Oh,
TV one day, and then I see him. This is I talk a lot about people with about books, so we know sometimes how do we like books? And one of the reasons that I hear so far is I found myself either in the books or in the author. So
Oh yeah.
when I watch him answer questions, it was not a straightforward, uh, predictable answer as an author in a book interview, because the question is a template. What is your creative process? Blah blah blah. And then there is a character in the book called Orhan, like his name, and then of course the question is this you? Right? And then his answer was so original that I got interested. I never heard about him before. And then I decided, oh, I have to read that book. My name is Red. After I read that book, I got, oh, this is me. I wish I wrote this book or something like that. And then I read every books of him. So that is one author that I have read everything. But again, like you, I felt like a lone wolf because everybody think his book is tedious, his book is difficult, his book is that. So
Yeah.
again, after making this podcast, I met quite a few people who actually love those books and this author. So yeah, let's be a lone wolf together.
Cool. Finally. I guess you're no longer a lone wolf when you are with other people, but that's I guess the lone wolves is a very nice name for it.
Yeah, it's romantic.
Yeah.
And
But yeah.
sorry, so, go
Yeah,
on.
I was curious about now that you've read the book,
Hmm.
uh uh
Do
how
you,
was it?
I enjoy it because I love witticism, and this book is witty in a comedic sense. And he could drop a line that is really funny out of nowhere, and I love it. And I have to say this is not my kind of genre, but I have to thank you that you put this book in my radar, because that's the whole point. And I started to open my mind to everything now, for something that I have some, maybe it was like a prejudice or something like, no, I don't want to bother reading that because the area in which I love is still a lot of books that I still need to read in that genre or area. Why bother? But that's not the whole point, actually. By reading somebody else's taste, it's one way to connect, and then as well as one way to expand my horizon or my portfolio of reading,
Mm,
say the least. But I enjoy it. I'm not saying that just because I don't normally read it, then I have to hate it. No, I found a way to appreciate it, which we will dig deeper later.
yep.
And then this Bob, and then probably this is the way for us to connect, because he is a software engineer or
Yes.
or a project manager. Maybe.
I I believe he's a software engineer actually, but and I think in the beginning of the book he starts talking about that he had this tech company and he had like this great success. He's finally a millionaire in some sense,
Hmm.
and now he can just live his life in a sense, and then that's why he started this. He agrees to pay for this cryogenetic uh,
He can afford it.
payment because he can afford it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, I do also believe that he has a heartbreak, right? So he's very sad at the first chapter, um,
You
and
mean
he kind of talks about that at the beginning. So yeah, he
was he
is like this. He I guess he's a lone wolf in himself, right?
Yeah, that's why we
Mm.
that's why you like it.
Yeah.
You should notice this, Paul, when you read. Try to find an element that you find you want to be or you have been. That's why we are attracted to a book. Sometimes if I felt that I don't have any connection with this book, and then I put that kind of question or perspective. Oh yeah, that's why, because there is not a single thing about me in this book that whether it's part of me already or what I aspire to be.
I guess that for me, Bob is a like you. I can attach myself to Bob in the sense that he's a pretty nerdy person,
Mm.
and he likes the science fiction and he likes the culture around it. He's also a software engineer, but I actually, in my perspective, I believe that I don't really see myself as him in the software engineer world, because I actually do like you mentioned the like a team lead or like someone that doesn't really look at the tech. He's at the beginning of the book, he sounds kind of like that person. He sounds like the guy that manages the tech team. He has a vision of something. But that would be like a mistake to not say that he is a pretty techie guy during the book. Like he has to do a lot of techie stuff, but the book is not written that way. So yeah, for me, it's the nerd part and the all the references to other science fictions that really kind of I feel related to.
And this book is very American. So if you are into American pop culture, most of the references are from that. And I noticed when you introduced the book a bit earlier, you mentioned about artificial intelligence and all this philosophical stuff. I wish you were there in my talk in the conference last
Ah,
week
yeah,
because I exactly talk about it. What is missing in this AI hype everywhere is that there is no philosophical thing about it. I actually mentioned lots of books in that presentation, and then I got a lot of feedback in the party that, oh yeah, I wish I'm reading that book right now. It felt like you're talking to me or something like, uh, yeah, it's interesting that you put the two and two together. You know what? I put two and two together. All
which
this
one?
in my conference talk last week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, I I put all the books about AI that I read in the 2000s when AI was not like today. And Marvin Minsky, The Society of Mind, and some other Rodney Brooks, or even Ray Kurzweil, The Singularity is Near. But Ray Kurzweil doesn't make any more sense for me right now. But if you want to make a drinking game, it's a good one. Every time he said exponential, then you can drink. You will get drunk exponentially fast. And then and then the books that is also I would like to mention in this discussion is the robot stories by Isaac Asimov. So those are the AI stuffs, and I combine them with the Sophia's Warden of Ustein Gorder,
Oh,
because it is the question about who we are. So I put the two and two together. Like actually, AI is a pursuit to understand ourselves and then replicate it. So if we succeed in AI, we should have two things. The first thing is the AI, a superpower, a copy of us. And then we should know how we work. So we should have answered all those philosophical questions that has been debated for thousands of years. But we don't get any of those. We get a very uh, powerful statistical machine. We cannot even, and then I mentioned the three laws of robotics. Maybe you know about it or not.
is it the
The three laws
uh
of,
yeah, I do remember. Isn't there a name, a term for it? Um,
no, it's just three laws of
uh,
robotics. The first one is a robot may not harm human being.
oh,
Passively.
you're talking about the I am robot
iRobot stories, yes.
rules? Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then
Yeah, you can explain it.
law number two is that a robot has to obey human being unless it breaks the law number one. And law number three, a robot should protect itself, self-preservation, unless it breaks law number one and number two. So
Yeah,
this simple laws is actually a safety machine, a safety guard for our AI. We cannot even implement it in the current AI because we don't know how to push AI to believe in one thing. AI is just predicting, right? That's why we have AI that hallucinates now. So I wish we should focus more on other method of creating AI that we could implement those laws. And then you know what happened in the party? People just came to me, Irwan. Actually, there was the fourth law. It was surreal when we suddenly talk about the fourth law of robotics.
What was the fourth law?
The fourth law, actually, if you Google it, there are two different things, but different thing than he mentioned. But what he mentioned was a robot should know that he is a robot and always be honest, always telling people that he's a robot. So you cannot deceive people by saying, I'm not a robot when you're a robot. Well, I can put
Ah,
lots of robots in that
for
sentence.
fourth law aims to prevent AI deception. I see. Yeah,
Yes.
because when you talked about the rules, in my head, I was thinking about the you've seen the Ex Machina movie?
Mm,
Yeah, so like the idea of our like if you believe yourself that this AI is a person, then you have succeeded in creating an AI.
oh, yes.
And I
Oh,
also
good, 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 good. Go on, go on.
yeah, so like the thoughts that um like currently we are basically just creating a really effective Google machine
Mm,
that we are hoping one day can kind of make us make companies a lot of money and speed up the documentation reading and everything in the domain that you're working on. And that's cool. Like it's very interesting, but people that believe that AI is kind of like, oh, it's becoming a human, they're like very far from the truth. Like it's only predicting the next word that is coming out. And that part makes it also very creates a great flaw for even replacing, for example, software engineers anyway. So like I'm feeling that it doesn't really talk to you as a human. It talks to you as if it was just Google answering your or like when you're searching for something in Google and you're just reading a document, it feels like that. Like it's just reading something that someone else has written. So um yeah, it's I agree on that. It's much more fun or interesting to look into the aspect of the philosophical part of AI and try to develop around that. I guess that currently there's not really much money in that. People want to have the AI that explains stuff to you,
exactly.
um, and you try to break it and you try to use it to replace the ineffective work environments so that you can save a lot of money on, for example, development in the future, stuff like that. Um, but yeah, the law from the idea from Ex Machina with the uh, talking to the human and you believe it to be the AI and believe it to be a human. I find that that's a very interesting uh, goal in a sense, like the challenge of it. Um, I guess, and also in our book, that breaks totally because this person that is in it, they are answering the problem with it. Like, why just create a AI from nothing? Why not just use a brain and then digitalize it and then that's the AI? Um, I, like when I read the book, I didn't really think about that as a process of that's also AI. um and then when I read it, it kind of made sense. Like, yeah, that is a way to get forth a artificial intelligence brain, because who cares if the brain is unique or if it's just a copy of an original one that starts thinking by itself.
Mm. But I believe the author of this book has read many of the AI stuff at that time because all the references in it. And I you mentioned Ex Machina there. Uh, in my presentation, I also mentioned Turing tests because
Mm,
after we agreed to the pursuit of AI, which is replicating human intelligence, we have to have a definition of done. And
yeah.
it's another difficult point to agree on. And in the 1950s, Alan Turing has in his paper, he suggested a way to find a definition of done, which is if a human observer can no longer differentiate between a machine and a human as a control, then you are done. So basically,
Mm.
this is just a mimicking or imitation game. You don't need to actually implement AI. You just need to fool the human observer. I think that is quite. But then I put together. How about the ChatGPT and Gen AI now? I believe he will not. Oh, I start to call it he. I believe that Gen AI will not pass, not because it is not as good as us, but it is too good, so that you know this is too much. This is not human. So
Yeah, yeah.
in a sense, it
You're
is.
missing the mistakes in a sense.
Yeah, yeah. And then another person came to me in the party and showed me social robot.ai or something like that, which is a Turing test game that you can chat with somebody on that app for 2 minutes, and then in the end you decide whether you are talking to a human or to a robot. And then we started.
Like a game.
Yeah, it's like a game. So there are people thinking about it.
I mean, that's really putting the Turing test to the edge. Like you can do it yourself now, I guess.
Yeah, it does. And again, it is 2024. Turing test was imagined in 1950s, and then at that time, the way you interact with the computer is by text. I would imagine 70 years after that, you would have a better interface to a machine than just text. But here we are. We are still mostly communicate with machine by text. Isn't it weird? Or
Well, yeah, you're saying something there. There, I think that when it comes to the graphical interfaces of how we percept AI, I think it's a bit it's a both way strike for this like the design and also the experimentation of using it
mm,
because uh, like if I'm going to reference other like typical science fiction movies, usually when you see a science fiction movie, they are trying to add in the cutting edge technologies, right?
mm.
And one of the things that you always look at and say, "Wow," but when you actually use something like that, it becomes in a sense stupid. It would be like the touch interface of a screen, right? Like people, they're walking through, like for example, a military base, and someone is like sitting there twisting
Minority
things and dragging.
Minority Report, right?
Yeah, yeah, like that move. And the idea is that, oh yeah, it's definitely better to move your hands, and then you just realize you would just get shoulder pain and you will have a bad back because you're constantly moving things around. And the no one thinks about the ergonomics because it just looks cool. And maybe the idea of like the AI as a text machine, it just is so much more comfortable because it's a document you can read, right? And you can learn from it. And I remember that our colleague from work, he enjoys he talked about the I'm not if you've seen the feature with Google's AI, the you can add in documents into the program, and then you can create it as a podcast, and you can listen to it as a
Yes,
podcast, right?
I mentioned that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah. And the only reason why that AI exists is because people enjoy podcasts. They enjoy listening to the feeling that the communication between people are kind of improvised, and you're just listening to the noise of like some topic, and that's the only reason why that AI exists in our sense. I believe that if like maybe in the future, but right now, if you were looking at a artificial human on a screen, or maybe some kind of hologram talking to you, you'll be freaked out. You would find that really strange, and you will like it's cool, but it would be really uh what do you call it, ineffective. Let's say you're trying to figure out something about the Bobbyverse, and you have to like turn on some machine and it opens up like this AI and you have to talk to it about it. I don't think that right now we're in a sense that people don't want that. They want this super easy, simplified, small thing. So in the future, maybe we'll see more people that are going to have some kind of robot walking with them or something that will uh, have another way of looking at this AI technology.
But if I see your point. If we have Gen AI in a robot form, we would be scared because Gen AI is basically uncontrollable. You cannot. It's like having a child without any education. You cannot predict what this child is going to do, right? So, and you
Yeah.
have no way to educate it. You just have way to put things into it. So yeah, I don't want it to be in human form. But the earlier AI visionaries, for example, that I mentioned was Rodney Brooks. He suggested us that it's we shouldn't separate the mind and the body like the philosophical debates because there is
Mm.
no intelligence for him was like an interaction between the body and whatever operates the body. And then what we call intelligent is something that emerge out of the two. So if you separate them, it doesn't make sense. Each of them is not intelligent. They're intelligent if you combine it together. That's one way. So for me, we should have achieved a robot, but a robot that is not going to harm us. That's why we need the three laws, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But this
The
is,
iRobot.
yeah, like the iRobot. But
Yeah.
again, go back to this. Uh, in the first pages, Bob was called artificial intelligence, but later on it is called replicants, which I agree more because he was a replication of the original human Bob. And then later on, this copy can be copied to, that's why until it becomes a legion, right? We have passed the 30 minutes, so we can spoil as much as we want.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I see that you are supporting the church, calling him a replicant, not Bob.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree. I'm part of the faith.
The faith community.
And this,
The
this go
yeah,
on.
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, no, you can go ahead.
No, I just want to say that's why I need to read the book physically because you cannot say because the word faith and some of the word was written in capital letters. You cannot get this in the audiobook. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, that's only my point. What were you going to say, Paul?
No, yeah, no, that's also that part as well. I guess what the author Dennis also takes up in the book that I also find really cool is that it picks up the like this is you mentioned it's American cultural book. So it takes up this religion as part of the I guess the antagonist in a sense.
Mm,
Not like one person, but like the whole country itself has become like a religious state,
mm,
and they are seeing that AI that has been fully um, that has successfully gone through the Turing test. Um, they are still a replicant. They are still just a copy, and they are not. They don't have rights, so they are like in the ownership of. So Bob is like under the ownership of the Fate
yeah, yeah, yeah.
organization, or is it a country? Like, is it Fate, the country of Fate? I don't remember.
It seems like a political movement that maybe I don't know, maybe it's a party or something like that that influence. It's not really a country, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah, yeah. It's more like an a religious cult.
Hmm,
And I don't think that Dennis really deepens down in that topic, but it's a cool thing like combining the characterizations that Bob is not Bob is not really doesn't really believe in religion, and the
hmm,
antagonist is a religious cult, and they were the ones that were investing heavily on the AI project, believing that they are going to have ownership of the AI. But I guess that um, I would say that with the fear of AI taking over, for example, or destroying our world, I guess that We Are Bob does really angles this to on another direction. He talks about, yeah, maybe you can't control AI, maybe AI will be the savior of the world instead, or and we are actually in debt for him as a species to survive.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Is there anything? Are there any particular points that you want to talk about in this book, like something that you found interesting?
Of course, there is a lot. And
Yeah.
it is also, I think the start of the conflict for Bob, or this book in the beginning, was the political struggle between the faith and the tech or somebody else in the beginning. So a president was elected, Holden, Handel,
Yeah.
Andrew Handel. And then, yeah, I believe this book was written in 2016 or something. So if
Yeah.
you follow American politics, you could just think directly who's this person could be
Yeah.
or imagine to be, and then which political movement or ideology behind that person, right? An apologetic fundamentalist president named Andrew Handel. It's in page 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
What do you say?
Yeah, no. I guess if I remember correctly, the book takes on that this is a terrible precedent, and isn't it more like he's the first he's the first non-religious president as well? Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
something that he's not. Yeah, like he's the first. What's the name of it again?
No,
When you don't believe in God,
during
atheist.
yeah, it is. Yeah. During his term,
Yeah.
he tried to ban election of non-Christians to any public post. So he is banning non-Christians. It could be another religion too.
Oh, so yeah, so it's completely reversed. Yeah. Okay. So it's the he is very religious.
Yes, he is. And then,
Yeah, and he tries to create this world where everyone has to have faith, I guess, or believe in the Christianity. And I guess that kind of spirals the whole domino effect of the world's disasters.
hmm,
But I guess when Bob awakens, we are at his beginning and Earth's end in a sense, because we are looking at the Third World War or World War III, and it's a desperate fight in trying to create the interstellar project, getting the first AI, human AIs, to get out in the galaxy and kind of win the race.
hmm,
And the political movement there is that they are everyone is trying to destroy each other indirectly, not having an actual aggression, but
hmm,
they are trying to kind of manipulate so that they are going to win the race and become the most powerful country.
hmm,
And I believe that yeah, so Bob would be the and when he wakes up, I believe like he's like one of many that has tried to um, accomplish this.
hmm,
And one thing that I think that was very interesting, that when Bob wakes up and he learns about this, he talks like the book starts talking about the existential crisis, because not only is he an AI, but he's also a copy of the original one. He's not the real Bob. He's a copy of Bob. So chapter 2, right? Bob 2.0.
yes. And this is really interesting because he described what it is like to wake up as a machine, as a copy of your whatever, and you exist in a machine now. Uh, and then he was trained by somebody called Doctor something. Dr. Landers is selecting for something he was not informed what was the selection for, but he mentioned that some other replicants just go crazy, so we need to stress test you and stuff like that. Is quite interesting. And then
Yeah.
uh, my for me the more interesting part was when Bob replicates itself later because
Yeah.
he suddenly Bob 1 to until 6, and then they start to have a name: Bill, Riker, Milo, Mario, and stuff like
Homer.
Homer. Yeah, Homer was the second
Yeah.
generation, and the third replication, I think.
Yeah, yeah, correct. Correct.
The thing that interested me was that this replication was suddenly having their own characteristics or their own temperament, but at the same time they share memories. For example, that they know what happened in the earth with the conflict and stuff, but one of them is really heroic, one of them is really introverted, one of them is really curious. It he mentioned it, he acknowledged this kind of thing, but he didn't actually explain why. Of course, nobody knows why. We haven't
Yeah,
replicated.
yeah. Yeah, he really, yeah, yeah, I remember that. He goes through the like I guess right before he starts copying himself, he thinks about the worries. Like he worries about the, oh, what's going to happen now? Will I have like a copy of myself? How will they be? Like how will we react? And like from my understanding of, well, from my thoughts around like the copying is that in a sense, yeah, you have this shared knowledge, but after the point of copying, they will now create their own memories and their own um, ideas. And one thing I believe that I don't think he doesn't talk about it directly, but it feels like in a sense that Bob as a protagonist at the moment of being copied is thinking about the worrying of having an exact copy of himself, like an identity crisis. And
Yeah.
I think that that is affecting the other copies. They are becoming like they are thinking about, I'm not going to be the same as this original one. I'm going to be different. So instead of Bob being, oh, I'm going to be Bob number three, I'm going to have my own name because I think it talks about that. Like one rule is that they're not going to have the same name. They're going to have different names. So
Yes.
he's thinking about, I'm going to be different. Like the next one should be different. And when he copies himself 3 times, all of them are thinking the same thing. I should be different. And that they are just grabbing personalities from, or like the characteristics instead of the whole personality itself.
Yeah, yeah, grabbing personality, that is interesting expression because it happens only a few seconds after that because one of the Bob was quiet, one of them are talkative. I think Mario or Milo, who can
Yeah, yeah.
they don't get along together. And then
Yeah, they're quarreling.
yeah, the original replicant was saying that it's only a few seconds and now they already are separated in terms of characteristic. But
Yeah,
the way I think about it is like if I don't know much about it, but I only speculate. If you are a twin and then you were separated and then being taken care by a totally different parent in a different context, then you will develop. And it takes time to develop the difference. But
yeah,
these replicants only take few seconds and then they're already different. So that is,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, could it be something in the machine or some radiation or something like that that put them together? Or my question was that, okay, we are the reason that Irwan is this Irwan because we all I believe that we all have all those impulses, but some impulses are nurtured so that it dominates the characteristic. For example, I like books probably because of this instead of my other urge to like games maybe. So
yeah, yeah.
But if you are a replicant, like Bob as a human being already has this kind of tendency which Earth dominates, and then it is replicated. But I believe there is still the other urges that is not dominating, or what do you call that?
Yeah,
Submitted.
submissive. Yeah.
And then could it be possible that the replicants enhance all those submitted characteristic or something like that? Isn't it
Oh,
interesting?
yeah, that might be a reason why they are so different. In my head, like in my thoughts are that I guess you can look at it in many ways. Like, let's say if you're a person that doesn't really care, you don't really care about the why are the bobs so different, then you could maybe the explanation of why they are so different could be so easy as that when you're doing the copying, you don't copy the whole bob, you just copy some parts of it, and it becomes like a different bob. Another thought that I had is that you're exactly the same. So when Bob and the new Bob is being copied, they will be the exact replication of themselves.
Hmm.
But when they meet each other, they do not perceive the world in seconds as we do. They perceive it as fast as the CPU can, or the computer can perceive it. So seconds for them, even when they are communicating out, are it's just a perceptive of what the other Bob is looking. It might be that Riker or Milo are actually hard pushing their computers, and then they are creating their own personalities faster than anyone else. I really like that idea. I like the one that where they're actually just doing the same as two twins moving away, but they're doing it in an exponential speed. So therefore, they're just so
Ooh.
different,
You sound like Ray
fast.
Kurzweil. I drink to that exponential.
Yeah. It might be that, and that might explain also why um, when it might explain why they are so different, because the thought Bob had is that we have to be different. We cannot be the same because we will go crazy. We need to be able to talk with each other as we are different people. And that mindset during and then you well actually you can think about it that if you're going to crank that prompt in ChatGPT, be something else, it doesn't take very long before it trying to express itself as something else. And it would be the same for Bob. Bob would be very different. And you can also hear that uh, I believe like during the first half of the book, you can just hear all the to-do list, all the things that he wants to do. Oh, I have to create some kind of virtual reality for myself because I can't just live in
Yeah,
a black box.
yeah.
I need to save Earth. I want to explore. I want to explore the universe and see what's out there. I need to upgrade. I need to upgrade my ship so that the ship doesn't become just this old piece of crap. I need to have a base and all these things. And you can hear that each Bob is just basically just picking each task. Like, yeah, we all agree that we need to do this list. And I have the personality of a leader, so I should go back to Earth. And then the other one wants to build a base. And yeah, it. I believe that the copy is just the next to-do list. You're just creating what the personality just attaches to that task in the story.
You mean creating backlogs?
Yeah, basically
They need
a
some backlog
huge
people
backlog.
now. We need now eat here.
Yeah,
And
we need someone to organize what we need to do.
yeah, but that is very interesting point. Yeah, I sort of agree with you because as a Bob, as a Bob in the machine, he doesn't have he's eternal, so he has all the time. So he mentioned a couple of times, as a Bob, I have all the time I need. Maybe he is like a vampire who live forever. But like Riker said, I have to help the people on Earth. They don't have forever. So this kind of understanding the timing, yeah, the timing is also a big part of the book because you have to imagine you communicate from one point to another that takes 10 years. So
Yeah, yeah,
so the bandwidth of perception must be different than us because we are saying in terms of seconds or hours, Probably their
Yeah.
experience of a second and an hour is totally different if you communicate back and forth in 10 years or something like that.
There is points in the book I find like it's funny when you read it because it doesn't make it's not it like for a human that just sounds absurd. It's the points when Bob is or Bob or Milo or any of the other Bobs gets surprised and then he writes like I was mind boggled by this. I had to think for a whole second. And then like the idea is that the whole second is actually hours or maybe like it's such an exponential time to use to do anything. The book really kind of in some sense you can feel that he is a human and then he just drops these jokes or these comments that are really like only an AI would understand that that is slow. Like 1 second is really slow.
Yeah. And only people with tech minded will laugh at that jokes at our observation
Yeah,
like this. That
yeah,
that is the thing I love from sci-fi because sci-fi is a way to put flesh on this technical idea so that you can relate it as to our current life because I don't know if you do this, but when I went to the university, they have this Scientific American Journal, which is mostly articles. They want to popularize this thing, but it is still technical. So they're explaining like the what do you call CRISPR, the gene editing tools and stuff like that in a popular
mm,
way, so that non-technical, non-academic can read it. But at the same time, it's still technical in a sense that yeah, it belongs to somebody who works in a laboratory or something like that. But
yeah.
if you read in a novel or a sci-fi novel, you put it in context of somebody else's life that you can relate to. Again, I
Yeah,
met
like real life or like a human way of looking at the technical ideas. Yeah.
yes, yeah, of course,
And
it's a fiction, so the situation is fictive, but the fiction is built on something a reader can relate to their own life.
that's like when we're talking about technical things, there's a very interesting technical technology that are being like it the book is heavily focused on that. And that is I guess that's something that also was popular, a lot more popular in it's still popular, but it's the 3D printing technology.
Yeah,
Like the whole book is focused on that particular tech. And the idea is that in 150 years from now, we are going to have 3D printers that can print whatever it will print down to the atom.
mm,
And Bob uses that heavily to upgrade or to create whatever he needs. And the idea of that is really interesting. And I don't think it's not something new. I would believe that it came from somewhere. One of the first times I heard about the 3D printer, I think was from Star Trek. I remember that it was always fascinating when they were like, oh, they want a hamburger. They just kind of clicked something and then a hamburger just showed up. And that was like the cool technology that sounded really distant, but technically we are close to something that can create food for us now. So yeah.
I hope it doesn't happen in our canteens, but
No, not yet, at least.
but I think I believe that 3D printing would be a crucial requirement before we can explore the space because there is not, it is not sustainable to take things from Earth there because we don't know what is there. But we need a way to create an infrastructure to live, to have a supply in food and stuff like that. So I believe it would be
Mm,
crucial. And yeah, I think we should. Sci-fi is very rich with this kind of ideas. That could be, if I were an academic, I would read a lot of sci-fi because I can get the research ideas from that. And I think
yeah.
3D printing, when it was hit, I personally never have the urge. I was fascinated, but I would never buy it because why? And then I would
Yeah,
just,
why do you need something like that? Yeah.
yes. But in this kind of context, I can imagine that is really vital. You have to have something like that.
Yeah, you like not only is it something that you need for the building aspect, you need to build a robot, you need to build some protection or some weapon and stuff like that. The idea of 3D printers now today is basically just building plastic, right? That's the consumer
Yeah,
value. But and I think that you could technically 3D print a house in a sense, but it's all for me. It's only been like a proof of concept. It's not something that has been massively produced. In Bob, this is the heavy technology. This is the backbone of the whole book.
yeah.
That's what makes everything possible. You just need to have the formula and the designs, and Bob is the perfect character to do that because he has all the time in the world to think about the programs and the technical mathematics and everything around it. Um,
I would argue the same thing with AI technology. Because AI
yeah,
technology, now that you mention it, AI technology is just like 3D printer in a few years back now, because
yeah,
they try to engage the consumer behavior out of it, but it's just like 3D printers. AI
yeah,
make much more sense in this kind of context because you need workers, you need explorers to learn the biological probe that he created here. I want to know this new planet and then just send a probe there. There have to be there has to be a machine learning type of thing there that could gather data and then come to you with a solution.
yeah. So the that's where I believe that sci-fi shines, right? It kind of it generalizes these ideas and also technologies in a what if world and makes it kind of consumable for people to understand what you could technically do. I guess one of the negative things is that people actually believe that that's where we are. Like it's and I believe that it's a pretty long time before we actually see something that will be similar to Bob in our world, where an AI is created by a human or a 3D printer can print down to the atom. But it's certainly a good book to read about.
I hope not, Paul. I'm getting old. I need to have it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I need to get rich and then froze my brain somewhere. But again,
Yes, so you can. Yeah.
the go back to the book on the VR evolution. I think it's very interesting. I think it appeals to us as a developer because it's like watching the evolution of GUI, graphical user interface, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember that the first version maybe like Windows 95 or something like that, where you can click,
Yeah.
it doesn't do much else. And then I don't know whether you do this, but in the old days we have this wallpaper, and wallpaper was fantastic. And then you try to express yourself in your wallpaper, in
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then
You love the video game, you pasted that as wallpaper, or maybe you found a good, cool picture, your family, stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then this is what the Bobs are doing because they create somebody likes the beach life, and then they have a hammock, and the VR is doing that, and another Bob
Yeah.
loving Homer, and then the Homer Simpson character and stuff like that. That is interesting, actually.
Yeah, they are expressing they're using their VRs to express the new personalities that they have occupied. They I guess the VR thing, I, what really associates that with, I guess that's where the software engineer
Mm.
part comes in, because that really just sounds like programming. You're just programming the code to make everything work.
And
And
there is iteration in
yeah,
it. It doesn't go instantly. You have to go to few iterations as you move along.
yeah,
But
he talks about that. And yeah,
that is also a contradiction because I believe if you already solve the AI, which is a harder problem, you should have evolved the VR earlier, isn't it?
definitely. Yeah, like VR should be obviously something that's been already created before that. I guess that we are seeing Bob not having VR installed in his frame because it was necessary. I guess that's you can blame the fate cult for that. And then he had to create it by himself, and that like he had to do the iterations and everything like that. But yeah, like definitely, I guess the writer could have just said, "Oh, there's this VR that is heavily Christian based, and Bob had to hack it." That would be a cool story online on that as well. Like it could have been an alternative universe where Bob had to hack through the virtual reality to get to create his own personal space.
But again, this is a book and a reader should work together because I believe if you don't work in IT like us, you don't pick up these small things, this iteration of the
Yeah,
VR and stuff like that. So, yeah.
yeah.
And one thing you mentioned, faith again, I wanted to mention that earlier. It's not typical American, actually, Paul. It's very this theme that a religious group becomes the villain or somebody who stopped progress has been a big theme in many things.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know, you know the term Luddite, Luddite.
No. What is that?
It's like somebody who hates progress or I don't know, maybe something biblical in it. Somebody
Ah,
who reacted
yeah. Sounds
negatively.
like you're conservative then, in a sense, but not that doesn't necessarily have to be political. You just don't like change,
Yeah,
in a
you don't
sense.
like change. You always think that the progress is bad, evil, and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
the term Luddism or Luddites uh, was interesting that it has been there for so long. Maybe maybe they reacted about fire when people invented fire in the beginning. Or wheel? No, don't use wheel. Wheel is evil. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, definitely. Like, it's not that's not the American thing. Like super Christian cults. Not
Hmm.
that's not where you can kind of grasp that. Oh, that's why it's American, I guess. The American part would be the with all the references to the movies and ideas, but at the same time, you have this. I look at America as this country where everything exists. So like you have all the aspects of it. You have the cults of Christian cults or other cults, and then you have also the libertarians, and you also have at the same time they're living together in a fast food world with all the technology and ideas and all the money in a sense. So that's the cultural part from the book I believe they are grasping on, and the faith cult uh, sounds just like the the fear people have around if a religious that is a Western religious um, religion it would take power in a powerful country and it kind of becomes this fear around like the book doesn't really talk about it as a fear. It kind of talks about it as a now. It's happening now. But I guess that Dennis Taylor uh, kind of used that as the um, main source as the evil villain of the book to kind of build up uh, the suspense regarding differences of ideas and visions of the world and who owns it.
Now I can I can relate this to my favorite book that I mentioned earlier from my favorite author, Orhan Pamuk. The book is called My Name is Red. It is actually, I can relate it to AI now. I just think about it. This is the beauty of having this conversation. And the
Yeah.
book about painters or illustrators during the Ottoman Empire, 1600 or 1500, I suppose. So it was an Ottoman Empire, which is a Muslim country or Muslim kingdom empire. And in Islam, there is you are forbidden to draw an image of a living thing. It can be human, can be animals or any living thing, because the belief is that if you're trying to be God, and then in the judgment day you will be asked by God to give life to your creation because you try to be me. That is the main idea. And then the illustrators in the Ottoman Empire, his their job, they're like our job actually. The king commissioned to make a book. They're like software engineer, but they're illustrator. So the king
Okay.
will have a project of creating a book of something, maybe a poem, or and their job was to create the illustration in the pages or some image.
Ah,
So they will get commissioned to. That's a feature. It should be gold or whatever. So there are a group of people who are doing this, commissioned by the king, and then some of the craftsmen learn that in the Europe, Turkey and Europe was like very near, right? Uh,
yeah.
there is an idea of the Renaissance painter who paint people realistically, so three dimensional. In the old days, in their old way of doing things, if you paint a person, it's just an idea of a person. So if you
Yeah.
want to make a person beautiful, a woman, it should have a gown or something. And then at that time, if you want to indicate that the person is beautiful, it should be slanted eyes. And the color should be like this. But all beautiful people in that kind of illustration is the same. So they are so fascinated that in Europe, there is a way, a technology, a technique to paint somebody that you could identify a person with. So if I paint you, Paul, I will recognize you because I've seen your painting. That book,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that book makes me, wow, this is a big deal that you can create an identical, a realistic picture. And then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
doing this was, they have to do it secretly because it is forbidden in the whole culture. And then some of the painters or illustrators at the time are practicing this technique uh, of painting realistically. And another group, a conservative one, hates that they're doing this and then they kill each other. So the whole thing is about that. But now imagine if it is just painting that you kill each other, or the idea was controversial just because you created somebody realistically. Isn't it just like AI? AI is doing much more than that. So imagine if this culture has to forbid this kind of practice. You're not just painting now, you're creating an actual human being that can work as a human being. So yeah, there are lots of I mean, there is a possibility. There is a mirror in these stories. Actually, they're just creating pictures, but isn't it AI is just a replication or a picture of ourselves in a way on a different medium?
Yeah.
So my
Well,
point
they
was
are
that,
in a sense. Yeah.
yeah. So there is always a possibility to create to put in a story to put a religious people with their own way of being a villain in a way.
I guess that's also why like at the beginning of the book, Bob, like the Fate group doesn't really like Bob at all. They know about him. They know that he doesn't like he's not a religious person, and he's just trying to kind of avoid them at the beginning because he knows that they are a problem. Uh,
Wasn't
yeah.
it what happened? Bob was cryogenet. Bob were put in the machine before the religious people occupy the political
Yes.
place, right? And then they end up
Yes.
with all this technology, but they I I'm grateful that they just didn't destroy it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like they had to I guess I guess that's the problem with being conservative. I guess that they are that's a conflicting issue. They are trying to maintain the power, but at the same time, by not progressing, they are going to lose their edge in whatever competition they are in. So they had to allow the AI development to happen so that they could win the competitions or the war that was going to come out. And I guess that from that perspective, the you can find the contradictions of having something that is that conservative in the story compared to what would be the opposite not liberals but like the opposite of a conservative, like someone that wants to have
Liberal,
change and
progressive.
progressive, yeah.
But again, it happens in our time. For example, the conservative hates social media that is more liberal or more left, and then they created their own threat or whatever, truth social. So,
Yeah, you have that, or you have like platforms that are completely changing uh, views and like I remember somewhere that one of the issues with technology, for example, is that they like technology does not have a uh, usually doesn't have any political agenda, but they have the agenda to make you stay at their programs or their solutions.
mm,
So for example, if you are a person that always want to look at football, then on YouTube, then YouTube will always provide you football. Like it will always push those videos, and you will probably miss out on something that would have been interesting. And that's definitely a problem with technology that we have on that media platform of for political people. Yet it becomes this echo chamber. Yeah,
mm,
like if you are a hard right-wing person, you're only going to listen to other right-wing persons, and there might be something that you actually believe in. You might actually believe in something that is progressive and not conservative, but you're never hearing it because you're constantly listening to the people that you agree with. And yeah, the I that's a really like far-fetched from the We Are Legion, but it is a topic that definitely uh, gets gets hard cut in the book in a sense because the book doesn't care about that. It just focuses on the uh, the idea that yeah, there's some evil people and we want to ignore them as much as possible and look at the fun stuff. And that's actually one of the critiques I have to the book as well. The book is it's taking up all these interesting topics, right? Like, oh, you have the 3D printer, you have the copying, identical crisis, time dilution in sense of perceptive of a computer, and then mo a lot of the time, the conclusion of each topic is that's interesting. Let's move on, right?
okay.
Like it doesn't. I really felt when I read this book, I didn't get like a deeper um feeling that I wanted to express it by having this podcast. I didn't get that it kind of introduces you to the ideas or to the technologies and the thought process. But like I'm not going to criticize Dennis that he couldn't give me an answer, but it's more like I'm criticizing it that it's fueling me with all these cool concepts, and it's kind of and the conclusion to them is, yeah, think about it. Isn't that cool? Like that's the end of it. That's what I was feeling at the end during the book. I was reading all these cool and exciting things, and after that, you kind of just move on to the next thing, and maybe my brain was more like focused. No, I want to read more about this. I want to have more about the AI. I want to have more about the 3D printer. Like, where are we in this technology? And yeah, Dennis is more like, yeah, we have to focus about Bob now.
Yeah, but I think that's the point of being a lone wolf reader or a reader anyway. That's the thing that I enjoy. because I go back to that book. My name is Red. You know that when you achieve the highest mastery of craftsmanship, what you do is you have to stick your eyes until you have to get blind, because when you already internalize all this technique in your hand, you don't need your eyes anymore. That's the different philosophy between the Renaissance painter and the illustrator in Turkey, because in the Ottoman, you have an idea of a person, then you just repeat it until you get the mastery. While the Renaissance is that you don't need to know anything about what you draw in the beginning. You just need to see it. So
Mm.
those books give me ideas. Oh wow, this is what painters think. And being someone who never draw at my life, this is fascinating. I want to know how they think. That is why we read, Paul. We have
Yeah.
we are addicted to new ideas, and then we know that it exists. I didn't know how painters thought or what they think
Yeah, yeah.
their work before I read those books.
Yeah, I guess that my critique is that I got too invested in it. I really wanted to know more, but the book doesn't really give you the answer. It just gives you the introduction to it. And
Yes,
I'm like, oh man, I now have to read something else that is kind of connecting this topic so that I can learn more about it. So I guess my critique is then is why did you create a book that is so interesting in many topics? Why not just pick one and deepen it? But like in a sense, it's about that's more of a positive critique than a negative one.
yes, I get it. And there are even more interesting things. So now when Bob is already out in the universe, Epsilon Eridani or those places probably real. Maybe you should check on astronomical places about these galaxies and what is bigger than galaxies. Anyway, yeah. So what is interesting for me when there was a kind of conflict with the Brazil. This is also a thing to mention. We can mention in passing that Dennis uh, during 2000 at that time 2100 something, the world has superpower. The USA, of course, is still there, but the USE, United States of European or Europe, and then Brazil
Yeah,
and China. So these are the dominating
yeah,
force in the world at that time. And Brazil somehow get picked as a villain.
yeah. They are like they are the war villain. Yeah, they are the second
Yeah.
ones that are getting out to space, and his mind and the mindset of the Brazilian. I guess like it's like that's the word probe, the space probe.
Hmm.
Bob is a space probe, and this Brazilian general, isn't it corporal something, is the military version of a space probe, and his only focus is just to kill everything that is not the Brazilian Empire.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, they are definitely the evil. Like they are like definitely the evil aspect on the spatial level of the
Yes.
book. But I
Then
do also believe, if I don't remember, that you also had the Australians that
yeah,
that's a part of the book as well. And
when
yeah,
when the war the conflict the battle with Brazil had died down, Bob replicate itself with all the backlogs, and
yeah,
then I see the stories turn into three strain. The first one is to explore a place to find a place to move people from the earth, and
mm,
then the second strain is to go back to earth and see what happens there, what needs to be done to help the people there. And then there is the third strain, which is also interesting, the exploration of space. I think that is
yeah,
the most Star Trek like, where he go to Delta Eridani and then see the Deltans with the gorilloid and the. This is interesting, isn't it? In itself.
yeah. That's the super Star Trek concept of meeting aliens for the first time. and like and then explore. And I guess Bob really expresses the how cool it is that he's the first one to find aliens. Uh,
And then that is the original Bob doing it, right?
Yes, correct. I guess he's a bit egocentrical because like he's the first one, so I like okay, I have this to-do list. I'm gonna pick the one that I want to do first, and then the other ones can do whatever they want.
Yes.
And he's really like egocentrical of what his to-do list, and I guess he deserves it, right? Because he's the first one. He has the right to pick first and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, he visits this Delta Irilini.
Eridani.
Uh, Eridani, yeah, with a D, Eridani, and he meets these alien species is that they are really primitive, I guess, but they are showing signs of intelligence, and that topic there is like not only is it talking about exploration, but during the progress of the book, it kind of becomes also the topic about being a god because in the at some point in that story, if I don't remember, Bob has to take the choice to intervene. Like he cannot just see all this investment that he has been doing on these deltas and not help them out.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that now the new top again a new topic happens. What like you're talking about the sense of being a godly entity,
Hmm.
like your help or your rat is I like is a it's like a almost a divine power for that species,
Yeah.
and it's like it really reflects around the okay, what happens here now. Now we're talking about the creation of a new religion almost,
Yeah.
in a sense, in the sense of the
The Bob.
universe that we are exploring. Yeah, the Bobbyverse. So that's also very cool part of the book. And you're definitely right. I believe that there might be a fourth path in the book as well. So you have those three. And the fourth one is not, it's more of a sidetrack story, but it's about Bill. Bill is the second copy, and he's the one that creates the base. He wants to create a base for all the Bobs.
Hmm.
So his focus on
That's the first one.
researching,
That's the
huh?
first one I mentioned. That's
Oh,
the
was it? Yeah, I thought
yeah.
like the first no the first is the find a planet, find the planets,
Okay.
and then you have go back to the planet, exploration, and then creating a base. So the first one is actually just finding new places that humans can live. But I believe that the first solar system that they travel to, Bill is the one that just decides he will stay here. He will create all the new techie things, and send it out to the others. And that's also where they kind of create the virtual reality MMO, like Second Life. They create the Second Life
Yeah, they did.
world. Now they finally can communicate between spatial areas with long distances. Um, and that story is also very interesting because I get like if I were going to pick one of the Bobs that I am, I would probably be Bill. Like in a sense, I would probably be the guy
Ah.
that says, "Yeah, I will stay here. I'll just program and I'll send you guys updates." Because I do not want to bother with the conflict. I do not want to explore really. That just sounds lonely and scary. I'll just create replicants and replicants of myself and entertain it with that.
I will be the original Bob and then messing up with the Daltons because there is because if you want to be a novelist or if you want to write at all, that's what you do. You sit, you either actually observe anything. You can observe yourself, you can observe your life, you can observe people, and then that's what the original Bill in that Daltons do. He observe and then he see these Daltons are talking to each other, and then one person looks nerdy like him. He called it Archimedes, and then somehow he knows that Archimedes seems smart, and then he put this flint or put whatever the
Yeah, I
object.
think it was flint. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like the whatever that could be like a sharp object.
Yes. So we are presented with the human or an evolution process from the primitive and then the developed technologies and something like that. And then as of course there is a predators there too. So you need to survive. And then Bob somehow find a justification that, oh, these people are what do you call that?
I guess worth saving, or they are
What is the word for animals now that is extinct, that is going extinct? They have to. What is their status now? You cannot hunt them.
oh
There is a term for that.
well the extinct animals, but yeah, you're
Protected or something like that.
oh protected and oh yeah, like that. You're talking about like the panda,
Yeah,
like it's a
you
protected
need to have the
species.
panda having sex with each other. So you are practice doing what Bobs do, and then we are doing it to animals today in
That's
different.
very true. Yeah. That is a
Yeah.
good point. Yeah, we are doing that to the we're like in a sense protecting a species from getting extinct.
Yes. And then that's what they did to the Delta, and then they put the probes, and then yeah, of course there is this thing, help from the sky thing, and then they start to make a religion there. It's like a comedy of ourself in a sense, how religions is created.
Yeah,
But
the sky god, because they
I
saved
got
us from extinct from getting killed. Yeah.
yeah, and then the way Bob and his replicants, I think it was Homer or somebody, that they decide should we stop it, and then they will end up with in a sofa watching TVs very soon. That is so
The
much humor.
That's also like a funny thing that they do in the book. I guess that at some point when they are replicating Bobs, they are starting to have issues with naming. Like they have to be unique, but they can also it becomes like the like a MMO, right? Like a multiplayer game. You
Yeah.
just have to figure a name. You don't care about the name anymore. It just has to be something. So the first it becomes it's cool names like you have Bill and Milo and Riker. Riker is from Star Trek, actually, I don't believe correctly. And then suddenly it becomes weird because when the replicants replicate themselves, you get Homer, you get Goku, and like the various other ways to express themselves, but
But the
just
most
becomes weirder and weirder. Yeah.
but the most boring one is Howard. When I mean the second,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why I end up as Howard after almost
I
names.
isn't there like a
There's even Khan in the chapter.
yeah, cause yeah, I right.
But
There are lots of them.
the thing that the bantering between these characters when they're watching the Deltans evolve, and then something like this is very interesting. You shouldn't help them now, because if you help them now, they get lazy, and then they will eat fast food and sit on the sofa very soon. You just skip the whole evolution with the gorilloids and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I mentioned earlier that we are doing it with animals. But if you there are kind of books genre or something like that has a theme of colonialism. This is what the colonists do to the places in the Far East or something like that. They see a primitive tribe, and then they came more superior because they can travel, and then they want to
mm.
help those people there, okay, by making them Christians or something like that. That's what actually.
Yeah, yeah. Helping with an agenda, like
Yes.
they are helping with a purpose for something else for their own greatness in a sense.
But that greatness is kind of, yeah, their own greatness of the colonies, or the observer in this sense, because
Yeah,
they don't
yeah,
know
like
any better. They project what they have experienced to those people. because they
Yeah.
actually have no idea what that people are thinking. They start even to think, oh, they must be bitching with each other. There must be the word your mother or something like that. That's really
Yeah, 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 yeah,
American jokes there.
yeah.
And
The Bobs are definitely a you can
anthropologists,
call them colonists. Yeah, definitely
I would call him
pushing their own ideas.
anthropologist.
Yeah.
Anthropology. Jane Goodall.
No. Or
She's
maybe.
I think she works with the gorilla in Africa. So she lives with them in the jungle. So this is a kind of interaction of
Oh, is that the woman that was having a like was taking care of a gorilla?
hmm,
Or is it chimps? Yeah.
or living with the chimps in their habitats in
Yeah.
the yeah. So that
I,
kind of experience also written in many stories, and Paul, I have read one book one day, and there is the main ideas of the book is that there are only 7 archetypes of stories.
mm,
I don't remember all of those archetypes, but the one I remember is Rex to riches. It's like Cinderella story from being poor until
poor, and then you're
yeah.
a queen, or yeah.
Another story was Odyssey. So I think all stories have the same either themes and archetypes can be combined. Maybe some of the
Yeah.
subplot has wreck to riches story, or the other one is exploration, like Odyssey, or Odysseus. And I would
Mhm.
argue, this is a lot of Odyssey archetype in this story.
Yeah, and if not, you could maybe take an argument that it has like the four plot lines
Yep.
are their own branches, but yeah, like the Odyssey archetype is definitely one that hits correctly here. I guess and then that would be the getting the people from Earth to another place would be like the main travel, but you have all the other sidetrack stories that are happening undergoing underway while that is happening.
My critic uh, would be the conflict between the Brazil. It seems like really just attach it because the Brazil doesn't seem to have a real motivation to do all this fight because they don't gain anything. They were
Yeah,
characterized as something just an enemy because but they
yeah.
don't have motivation to it at all.
Maybe you could think, maybe we can look at it as the sense of if there wasn't when you're talking about AI and you have a fear of what that they can become evil, that would be that Brazilian AirPod. Like you're afraid of something that is just purely focusing on destruction. It has gotten one thing programmed in their head, and that's the only thing that they're going to focus on. And that would be the Brazilian AirPods. Like they only think about the greatness of the Brazilian Empire, and that includes the rules that if I am the only Brazilian left, then everyone else should die. Like the logic of that, it becomes very clear for him when they're trying to negotiate. Let's not fight. Let's just explore. And he becomes, no, you're an enemy. I have to kill you. And I'm the one that should do it because I am traveling in the similar technology as you are. And the I think that that's one of the that's a branch that you can talk a lot about when it comes to the fear of AI taking over. Like and what if you program it wrong? Like or you're learning it something that you shouldn't be doing. And that's why you have the three laws from iRobot, right?
Hmm.
So it would become this. They are the antagonist of the AI perspective from
Wouldn't
yeah.
it would have made more sense if the faith are the villain.
Yeah,
They have
and
motivations to do it.
yeah, and the so like instead Bob was actually from Australia, since that's one of them, and they were very neutral, but they tried to kind of win the race. And then you had the evil Fate Empire that technically would be the same as the Brazilians, and they try to create the evil Bob that tries to just destroy everything. That would make sense. Uh, the In the sense of building the storyline,
Mm.
but I believe that I I think that the Fate idea, it comes in as a he did, I don't think that the Dennis wanted to have a actual antagonist, because Fate isn't really an antagonist, right? There aren't any enemies in the Bobbyverse. It's more of minor evil characters in a
Yes,
sense.
yes, yes. And then we should
And
sorry. Finish.
yeah, I have I have read the three other books, but the two other books, but like my theory, because I have there are more books than those three. My theory is that where he wants to go with the main antagonist thing would be somewhere in the lines where Bob is the main villain. Like he's his own
Oh,
villain.
oh,
It
oh,
becomes like a full
one
circle.
one of the Bobs, one of the replicants.
Yes. So
Ah,
he replicates so many Bobs that one of the Bobs in the end has to be evil, because there are no more personalities to pick. So you kind of have to pick the one that is completely different from you. That's my thought of it. I haven't really read the other books, but like that would make sense for me. So that's why Fate is just like it's a face. Like you're a teen, it's the teenager enemy, and then or the baby enemy, and then the Brazilians is just something that comes and goes, and then the main enemy would be yourself.
wow, that is really deep. It goes that way. That would be really interesting because I
Yeah,
feel the last battle was like it's not necessary the last battle, but it has to have something because when I read the last 50 pages, I haven't seen any conclusion because I got this habit when you reach almost the end, so you must have to pick something, and then there is a kind of conclusion, but it doesn't go anywhere to near conclusion at that moment. And then suddenly there's
no,
battle, and the battle was quite okay, but it feels like it was forced into the plot.
yeah, yeah, no, I agree on that. Like it, I guess that's also one of the pains with. I guess that's where I'm thinking about American culture. It's built as a series. It's not built as a finalized book. So,
Mm.
like, if you want to know more, you have to read the second one and the third one and maybe the fourth. Like, there's always an open end of a next iteration of the Bobbyverse that will come out. It's also like a never-ending story. So he could probably create infinite Bobbyverse books about this.
I think we have to talk about what Riker does. I
Yeah.
know the multiple people makes me difficult to which tense am I using now? Should I are they plural or not? Because what is more interesting, uh, what the Riker did was the closest to whatever happened to humanity. He comes back to Earth and then see the kind of United Nations there, which
Yeah,
debated.
yeah, it's you still have countries, but they're like super small now.
Hmm.
Like they have basically reduced the population down to 90%, like down to now 10%. So you have like I guess it's even less than that, isn't it? Or like we are like
15
7 billion
million
people.
to 15 million or
Yeah,
so.
so it's like total of 50 million people left on Earth,
Yes.
separated into these 4 or 5 countries. Everything else is just uninhabitable. Everything's broken, and they're just kind of living their own separate lives. And for some reason, of course, the Fate cult is one of those entities.
And the
Uh, and
Australians as well, I think.
huh,
And the
the
Australian,
Brazilians,
Australian.
yeah, yeah. But I also believe that the Brazilians are there as well.
Yeah.
But they are like peaceful now. They are like much less. And yeah, Riker comes back to Earth and basically starts the communication about we are now going to try to find you a new place to survive. And Earth is also dying. It kind of gets this interstellar plotline. because of the war, now nothing can grow anymore. Everything is kind of just falling off. And then you have Riker, the the first Bob in command, and then the second one is Homer, trying to save the humanity and find them a new place to live.
Yeah.
And he has to be like the main diplomat
Yes.
to communicate with all these countries.
I think that is the most human part of the sci-fi because
Yeah,
it shows us politics. Politics is politics because of the allocation of resources. Whenever,
yeah,
if you have unlimited resources, you don't have politics. You can just agree with
yeah,
everything. But the moment
that's true.
you have to allocate resources, then people are starting to fight for it. And they fought for it in this book. Uh, we are presented by some of the debates, like the Spitsbergen or something, who I think
This,
imagine from somewhere in Norway.
yeah, is that the
The
food supply?
Svalbard, the one somewhere in the north that has an access to the Svalbard seed vault.
Yeah. The seed vault. Yeah, and then
Yes,
he uses that as leverage to get on
yes,
one of the first ships. Yeah.
yes,
I'm not sure if I remember if the country that Riker is initially focusing on was the UK or if it was USE, but it was like UK and USE, but it was the colonel that is the main person that he wants to. That should be the first country to travel to the new world that he is trying to provide,
yes,
and that's where the Svalbard seed vault, yeah, is being used as a leverage, and then it almost becomes this. Uh, yeah, because I remember Riker got really angry, and then he says something like, "If you continue pushing this, none of you will get on the ship." And that sounded like parenting in a sense. Like now, Bob has become like the big brother in a sense because now he's deciding who's going to live and who's not.
yeah,
And I guess that's, yeah, it's definitely like the most human part of it.
and
The discussion. He has to also be like the moderator. So
yeah,
if you yeah, everyone is talking at the same time and struggling, and yeah, the he kind of looks at it as like from that point on, Bob is the parent and everyone is just children
yes.
in his eyes,
But this
or
parent
Riker.
here has unlimited resource. He lives forever. He is not. He's never tired. Imagine you are a new parent, Paul. Bob is never tired.
Yeah,
Has never been tired at all.
that's very true. I guess it's a you could funnily guess you could kind of look at it as God in a sense, a
Yes,
godly presence.
but this God is trying to democratically make people to agree. He could, a real God would just say this, accept this, but he's not. He's more like a democratic leader and makes people try to agree. And I like the jokes he sprinkled around this part. For example, like the tendency for the UN people to make speeches, and then when
Yeah.
they finally agree, okay, we are going with this, the first traveler, and then they start to make sense. If everyone got time to speech, it will take at least an 8 hour long speeches.
Yeah, he turns on all the microphones, isn't it that
Yes,
yeah, and everyone talks at the same time. It's like, see, I have to decide, or someone has to figure that out. Yeah,
yeah.
that's funny.
It's a
And
kind of
the also uh, the scenario. There's a scenario where he also talks to Fate, and they're still calling him a replicant.
yeah,
Like, good
yeah,
morning, replicant, and like
yes,
uh and that is like, and then I guess like like in the story, like of course when they let Bob leave Earth, they don't leave him without a backup plan to destroy him. So they have like this atom bomb inside of him, and they try to kind of or they try to override him with this hack that he's found in the code.
yes,
And I remember just
Wow.
really like that's the first time he also like he swears back to them, and I find that just hilarious that an AI would respond that way. You have like all the time in the world to create the perfect response,
Yeah.
and then he just goes back to saying "fuck you" in their face and, and call off the communication.
But that is really interesting. That is the part that relates to our job so much. The time when Bob started to debug his own code or his own creation,
Yeah,
put it in a sandbox or something like that. That's really our terms.
yeah, definitely. I like if you don't have like these like the imagination or the experience from like IT, you don't really get that uh
Yeah,
like relation to that concept of debugging and sandboxing
yeah.
in that way. So like that of course makes it very fun for me when I read books like this. Like, oh yeah, I can totally relate to that topic. Like, and I think like I'm not sure if it's in this book, but there's one of the other books like there's a bug, and then like the bug is super stupid or something like that, and he talks about how stupid that bug is, like how did he miss it, and like that's like a typical also scenario that we usually have in our work. Like these the simplest of things are the issue to the problem that you're experiencing.
I cannot imagine. I cannot believe we haven't talked about Guppy at all.
Oh yeah, the like the that's the actual chat GPT, right? Like
I,
that,
I
like
imagine. I imagine it started like a terminal Windows for us. It's a command line,
yeah, yeah.
but
It is a commander line, but like in my head, that's what if you had like a super powerful chat GPT that needed to have its own chat GPT?
yeah.
That's grubby in a sense. Yeah.
And then it's like I don't know. It's like the Bob is the machine, and then he if he wants to go to his the way he run itself or he run his applications, then he called Guppy. Guppy was kind of a butler in a way or a command line. He commanded Guppy,
Yeah,
and he
yeah, yeah.
was visualized as the fish in Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, the fish from Star Wars, one of the Star Wars 1, I believe, the fish creature.
I need to look at it because I have no ideas. But the main thing is, if you replicate a Bob, it will come up with its own Guppy.
Yes.
Guppy, yeah, but the Guppy has the same characteristic in all the Bobs, even though the Bobs are different. There's,
Yeah, that's very true. Like it's the same weird guppy, and I like, and they don't change him for some reason.
yeah,
In my but like when you talked about it with the terminal, I guess that kind like I know that there's a lot of developers or software engineers that really love customizing their terminal. That is
exactly.
definitely Guppy. Yeah, yeah, that's like the Guppy thing. Like because first Guppy is just this robot that talks weird, and then suddenly like he tweaks him, adds some personality, adds that he's a fish, like he's a human fish kind of thing from Star Wars, and then he starts to get this feedback loop where every time he asks things, and then Guppy starts to get a little bit like it sounds like he's annoyed, but it's not. It really isn't. And I was like, yeah, I guess you could match it to a terminal in a sense, like as a feedback loop. That could also be an antagonist in the future. Not sure if it is, but that
Ooh,
would be cool.
yeah.
Like Guppy is actually an AI now. But after all those iterations of versionings, it just
An,
becomes its own AI.
an AI inside an AI. That is an Inception stuff.
Right? Yeah, so you have the AI of the AI, like that could possibly be a topic that they pick out. And like you could also talk about the topic of living in a simulation because they are basically simulating everything. And then uh, so that's one of the things about like you talked about the Australian, no, the Brazilian. We talked about the Brazilian pod or replicant,
Hmm.
but you also have the Australian replicant, which is it's a sad story for him because he's just a regular person. He doesn't understand how to use the power that he has. So he like what I from what I understood is that the Australian pod would be what would AI be if you had a brain that you digitalize and the person is someone that has no sense of technology whatsoever, and you just send them into outer space. And it's kind of like infinitely just living in a black box, doesn't understand almost anything of what's going on. Um, he's
Definitely
like
not.
representing what would happen if you put an 80-year-old man or a woman that doesn't understand technology into a pod and they just have to live forever in that pod.
That's
That's
a
from what I,
torture.
yeah, basically. And uh, I believe that you could see a lot of human sympathy from Bob there. Like he talk he, like he understands that pain very well because of the time perspective that he is experiencing compared to everything that else that is human that lives in seconds. That this guy is basically a amputated Bob, and
Mm.
he starts the journey by trying to psychologically help him over
Wait,
time.
why didn't I get this? Is it in this book or in the other
Yeah,
book?
yeah, yeah, it's
Oh
in that book.
wow.
It's I believe it's in like one in the last third of the book. You meet the Australian,
Okay, okay.
um, and the Australian pod is super sad. Like it's a very sad story. I believe like uh the um it should be uh one of the Bobs. I'm not sure if which one it would. Maybe it was Howard or it was Riker or Homer. Like
Okay.
it was either one of those directions when they tried to find and they found the Australian Bob, the guy. And I believe that like it's a very human aspect there because it talks about this pain that only they can understand. Like only people that are AI would understand how painful that would be. You could yeah, or like feel it themselves. And the concept of being like kind of blind, not and like I guess that him adding in that he's blind and like he doesn't have a virtual reality, that he hasn't done anything except travel space.
Mm.
um, but like he didn't have to add too much because I just believe that the loneliness is enough to understand. And that's the human part of it, and then everything else would be like AI related. Yeah, but you probably read about it, but it kind of didn't really. It wasn't one of the most important stories. It was more like a topic of a chapter.
Yeah, it's uh it's strange because if I usually tend to pick up this small but
Details. Yeah.
strong points. But really, uh I always think if Elon Musk solve the problem of space traveling, I would not go because in my mind it's really lonely. Loneliness, like you just mentioned, it's
Mm.
embedded in the game. If you watch The Martian and even Bob, they should be lonely. Even Bob in Delta Eridani, he was just observing this Delta, and that's why he got really. So I mean you should be a lone wolf if you want to travel, and then you should like learning. If you don't do any of those, it will be
Yeah.
torture.
But that's something we totally forgot to mention. Or we did mention it at the beginning. Bob just went out of a relationship in chapter one, so
Hmm,
he's really sad about that.
hmm,
Uh, and that's also one of the funny things because now that every replicant during the book gets replicated, they remember this person as they're heartbroken. So they all are in a way depressed in that area because yeah, they remember this girlfriend that they kind of uh they cannot be with anymore, and they never got a final conclusion of it.
hmm,
And yeah, and that part of it kind of comes a little bit at right at after he travels out of space into outer space,
hmm,
because one feature that we didn't really look too much into is that Bob can adjust his own feelings
Yeah.
in the story. So he turns off all the negative parts, like the anxiousness, the
Yes.
fear,
Yes.
and he's basically just he's only experiencing the world and like as it is, and uh, keeping his humor up in like in a like in calculated settings. But in the like at the end, he turns everything on again, and then he experiences all these feelings that he's been missing out on, like the sense of loss
Mm.
from his family, the sense of loss from his um, girlfriend that is now dead, and being alone, and like all the things that he's afraid of, because like there is this topic that if he gets broken, he's broken forever. Like he can't replicate himself after being broken
Mm.
mentally. And that would be a cool feature, wouldn't it? Like every time you're sad, you can just turn it off. Uh, and you will have to also have the discussion of if that's a good thing or not. But like that could have been like a very interesting, like that is something that we were doing, but we were doing it biologically. But like
Yeah.
technology, like digitally, would have been a really interesting setting to have.
It's like the technology. It's like the digital way of maybe smoking weeds or drinking alcohol to death.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
basically, or taking some depression pills. Like
Yes.
you just have a slider, you just pull up and down, and if you want to have emotions, you just drag it up. Um, so yeah, that is also one of the things I believe that I guess the author used that as a part to explain why isn't he going crazy? Like why isn't he afraid? Like yeah, he can adjust his settings, and then he can just kind of
Mm.
go through whatever he wants. And that might also be the reason why Bobs are different as well. Like, why are you different? Well, my settings are here. Like, if you have 1 to 100 on emotions, you're the one that decides where you want it to be.
Bob was the most emotional, intelligent, artificially somehow. Wow. You know,
Yeah.
artificial intelligence should be interesting. That is my promise, my premise in my talk. Artificial intelligence should not be as boring as they are presented now in the hype. Maybe you agree.
Yeah.
Yes. But do you realize, Paul, that we have talked in 2 hours?
Yeah, we have about Bob of everything.
Uh,
Like you meant, like I'm glad that I could show you the book and introduce you to the genre of it. But I guess that then my next vision for next time we do this would be to push you through the fantasy novel instead.
the
And
Ben,
I know that you have read fantasy, but like one of my books that I find very
yeah,
interesting
the
would be
Sanderson
super cool.
guy,
Yeah,
Benson,
Brandon Sanderson. Yeah,
Brandon Sanderson.
like there's a lot of people that know who that is. He's like very popular now, but of course he's like a crazy guy when it comes to book writing, and I'm a very huge fan of him when it comes to what he has been creating.
Mm.
And he is like one of the people that you can kind of just you can go through a rabbit hole of topics and interesting terminologies and religiously created ideas and stuff like that.
Mm.
So
It's good.
whenever we have time for that, we should probably do that as well.
Well, that should be my pitch, but I don't have to do that pitch anymore. That's good. So you are not
Well,
you
you
enjoy
have
this
convinced me.
conversation, I suppose.
You have convinced me to check out the Book of Red.
My name
So
is Red.
my name is Red.
Yeah, that would be
Because
my challenge too. If you ever want to read that book, I will be your buddy read if you want. We can talk about.
yeah, I'm definitely going to read that one. I know that. Well, I'm actually going to listen to it. I'm going to. I still have a point on Audible. I'll add that one in. Or or is there good illustrations that I should look at when I'm reading
Yes.
that book?
You should find this. This book has been printed in many editions, but
Mm,
the fancy the hardcover edition should be nice. And I think there is also illustrated. I think because you need to get used to this voicing, Paul. Everyone, this book is written in chapters that every
hmm
chapter represent a character. Could be a person, could be an object, and everyone is saying in the word I, the first person narrator.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would be probably confusing before you like this book. I couldn't start with just Audible. I need to experience the first few chapters in written, and then I can imagine it when I listen to it. So I combine it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I'll definitely get the book and I'll read
that,
that instead. That will be
that's just
cool.
a suggestion. But yeah,
Yeah, but I'll take that suggestion. Like it's like a good it's like a experience, right? You know the experience of a good way to do it. I'll test that out and see if I can find it
because
to my liking.
its chapter is sometimes describing the same scene from a different perspective, and then you have to find the overlapping part of each perception. The
Oh
first
yeah, I like
probably,
that.
and one of the perception probably lying, and that is the real fun of it because he makes really fun of forming the stories that way. That is my attraction of the book. Well, anyway, I'm not going to spoil it to you.
No. I'll read it and we can spoil it afterwards.
Good. I'm glad that you did this because I really enjoy it. I hope you do it too. And then we are already
Yeah.
planned our next ones. So thank you for that, Paul. Thank you for the
Yeah.
time and for introducing me to We Are Bob. And everyone who listened to this, check this out. We are Legion. We are Bobs. Thank you so much. Bye bye.